You already know what this feels like. Someone didn't reply to your message. And right now, without you realizing it, your brain is treating that the same way it would treat getting punched. Not as a metaphor, not as a figure of speech you throw around when you stub your emotional toe. Literally, in the exact same regions. And we have the brain scans to prove it, which we will get to because they are genuinely one of the strangest things science has ever accidentally discovered. But first, let's sit in the moment. Because you know this moment, you send a message. 5 minutes pass. Nothing. 30 minutes. Still nothing. 1 hour. You've checked your phone 11 times. You know it's 11 because somewhere around refresh number 6 you started counting. And you didn't decide to start counting. Nobody decides that. It just happened. The way breathing happens, the way flinching happens, as if some ancient part of you quietly took over the controls and began logging the data. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. You're not even sure what you're hoping to see. You just keep checking, over and over, like the answer to a question you haven't fully formed yet. Refresh. Nothing. Lock the phone, unlock the phone, refresh again. The rectangle is exactly as blank as it was 90 seconds ago, and somehow you needed to confirm that personally. One message, one person, one tiny glowing rectangle, and your entire nervous system has called an emergency board meeting. There are slides. Someone made a pie chart of how many times you've checked your phone. The numbers are not good. Somebody in the back is suggesting you draft a follow-up message. Somebody else is suggesting you draft, delete, and rewrite that follow-up message 4 times before sending nothing at all. The meeting has no agenda and no end time, and you were not invited so much as conscripted. Now here's the strange part. The explanation for why this happens has nothing to do with your personality, nothing to do with your attachment style, nothing to do with how much therapy you may or may not need. You could be the calmest, most secure person alive, and the rectangle would still get you. It goes back about 2 million years. And it starts with a stick man standing alone on a plane. Picture him, early human, no shelter, no weapons strong enough to fight anything larger than his own anxiety. No DoorDash, no group chat, no way to call for help louder than his own voice against a very large and very indifferent sky. Truly a dark time. Now picture what happens when that stick man gets separated from his group. He doesn't just feel lonely, he's in actual danger. No tribe meant no fire. No food, no one watching his back when something with very large teeth decided he looked like a convenient dinner. Being part of the group wasn't a social preference, the way you might prefer window seats or a certain brand of cereal. It was the difference between surviving the night and becoming a cautionary cave painting. Somewhere on a wall in ochre and charcoal, there is a very simple drawing that means roughly, this is what happens when you wander off alone. So that Stickman's brain built something, an alarm system, specifically designed to detect any sign of social disconnection and treat it like a 5-alarm emergency requiring immediate action. Not mild concern, not a gentle reminder, a full body, drop everything, something is wrong response. Because the stickmen whose brains shrugged and said it's probably fine did not tend to become anybody's ancestors. That brain is now your brain. The alarm system is still fully operational. It did not get the memo. It did not update. It runs the exact same code it ran on that windswept plane, and it runs it while you are lying in a warm bed under a roof with food in the fridge and a locked door between you and the nearest predator. It has absolutely no concept of what an iPhone is. Imagine tiny stickmen living inside your skull. Hard hats, clipboards, a monitoring station lit up with screens, watching every social interaction like air traffic controllers in the middle of a Category 4 hurricane. This is their entire job. They take it extremely seriously. They have never once taken a day off. Someone smiles at you. Green light. Someone waves back. Green light. You send a message and get an instant reply. Green light, green light, green light. The tiny stickmen are genuinely thriving. Morale is high. One of them brought in donuts. The screens are calm and blue and everything is fine. But then, you send a message, no reply. One of the tiny stickmen slowly sets down his coffee. 5 minutes, 10, 20. He picks up a tiny phone and calls his supervisor. He keeps his voice level because he is a professional, but he is watching the clock, and the clock is not helping. 30 minutes. Someone pulls a lever. Deep in your brain, a very small but extraordinarily loud alarm begins to wail. The blue screens flip to red. The donuts are forgotten. Every stickman is now at his station, and every station is now a problem. And that alarm is not messing around. In 2003, a research team at UCLA ran what might be the strangest experiment in the history of neuroscience. They put participants inside brain scanners and had them play a video game called Cyberball. 3 players, a digital ball, passing it back and forth. Nothing about this sounds important yet. It sounds like the most boring game ever designed, which, to be fair, it was, and that was rather the point. Then halfway through the game, the other 2 players stopped throwing the ball to the test subject. That was the whole experiment. Someone got excluded from a digital ball-tossing game with players who weren't even real. Nobody said anything cruel. Nobody sent a nasty message. The ball simply stopped coming. Pass, 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 and then the 2 other little icons just quietly kept it between themselves. over and over, while the test subject sat there watching a ball they were no longer allowed to touch. And the brain scans showed something that made the scientists stop and look at each other. The exact same regions that activate when you feel physical pain, when you burn your hand on the stove, when you stub your toe at 3 a.m. in the dark and the whole night briefly turns white, those exact same regions lit up when someone was left out of a fake video game. The brain did not care that the players were computer generated, did not care that no actual ball existed, did not care that the entire scenario was invented by researchers in a lab, and had zero consequences for anyone's real life. To the brain, being left out is being left out. Same alarm, same pain response, same everything. It processed a snub from a cartoon exactly the way it would process a hand on a hot stove, because as far as your wiring is concerned, exclusion is an injury. Now here's where it stops being just interesting and starts being genuinely bizarre. Being ignored doesn't just hurt. It makes your brain start talking loudly to itself. Picture Stickman at his desk. Message sent. No reply. Thought bubbles erupting above his head like popcorn. They're busy. Did I say something weird? They definitely saw it. Did I say something weird 2 months ago that they're only now finished processing? Wait, what did I say 2 months ago? Stickman is now scrolling back through conversation history from February. It's currently September. He has reopened a thread that both parties had mercifully forgotten. He is reading his own old messages in a suspicious voice, as if they were written by a stranger he does not trust. This isn't Stickman being dramatic. This is a documented psychological response called uncertainty intolerance. And it is one of the most exhausting things the human brain is capable of doing to itself. It is your mind refusing to leave an unanswered question alone, sanding the same spot over and over until there is a groove worn into your whole afternoon. Here's the mechanism. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its entire job every second of every day is to model the world and predict what happens next. It needs data. It needs signal. It wants to know what is coming so it can be ready for it, because a brain that predicts well keeps its owner alive. When the signal disappears, the brain doesn't go quiet. It panics. And a panicking brain doesn't generate calm, reasonable possibilities. It generates worst-case scenarios. Because for your ancestors, optimism had a cost. Ancestor hears rustling in the bushes. Thinks, probably nothing, let's keep walking. There's a real chance that ancestor gets eaten. Ancestor hears rustling. Thinks, that could absolutely be something trying to kill me. That ancestor survives. Tells the story. Passes on the brain. So the brain defaulted to danger, burned it in deep over millions of years, made pessimism the first move whenever the signal went dark. It is not that your brain is broken, or negative, or in need of fixing. It is that the anxious, catastrophizing, assume the worst brains are the only ones that lived long enough to become you. The bushes are rustling. The bushes are a read receipt from 6:12 p.m. And here's a question worth pausing on. Drop this one in the comments. What's the longest you've waited for a reply before you started genuinely spiraling? Because I suspect some of you have very, very specific answers measured in hours and minutes. And I suspect a few of you can name the exact conversation without even trying. Now, the invention that took this ancient problem and made it significantly worse. For most of human history, social exclusion revealed itself slowly. You walked past someone on the trail and noticed they looked away. You realized nobody saved you a spot by the fire. The signals were gradual, ambiguous, easy to rationalize. Your brain had wiggle room. Maybe they didn't see me. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe the light was bad. And they simply missed my face. There was space in the story for mercy. And then engineers built red receipts. Picture Stickman checking his phone. The word delivered sits there. Neutral. Unbothered. Minding its own business. Delivered is a word you can live with. Delivered means the message is out in the world, and anything is still possible. And then it changes. Read. 6:12 p.m. The tiny stickmen inside the brain see this update, and they completely lose it, because this is no longer ambiguity. This is confirmed, time-stamped, irrefutable data. They read it at 6:12. It is now 7:04. That is 52 minutes. One stickman has already converted this to seconds. It's 3,120. Another has filed a formal incident report. A third is drafting a follow-up message that he will absolutely not send but cannot stop writing. A fourth is standing very still and staring at the wall, which is somehow the most alarming reaction of all. What red receipts did, what all of social media did, was transform a slow, human-paced social signal into something instantaneous and surgical. We handed 2-million-year-old alarm systems a real-time rejection dashboard with timestamps and delivery confirmations and typing indicators that appear and then disappear, which is possibly the cruelest interface decision ever made. Those 3 little dots mean someone is composing a response. And then the dots vanish. And now you know they started typing and stopped and decided against it, and you get to live inside that gap forever. Nobody asked if the brain was ready for the typing indicator. It was not ready for the typing indicator. Now, the fact that stops people cold. Researchers found that the pain of social exclusion travels the same neural pathways as physical pain. not similar pathways, the same ones. And someone, somewhere, looked at that finding and had a genuinely unhinged idea. If social pain runs on the physical pain system, then maybe you could treat it like physical pain, with a painkiller, an actual painkiller. They gave participants Tylenol before a social rejection scenario. Regular, over-the-counter, costs $3 at CVS, the same thing you take for a headache or a sore back. Tylenol. The emotional pain went down. Picture Stickman getting left out of the group chat, Stickman walking to the medicine cabinet, Stickman reading the back of the bottle with the focused expression of a man who has just discovered something important about his own neurology. Nowhere on that label does it say treats being left on red. And yet, somewhere in a university lab, a neuroscientist is nodding so hard his glasses fell off and he has not yet noticed. To the brain, a snub and a bruise run the same system. Same alarm, same pathways, apparently same off switch. Let that sink in for a second. A $3 pain reliever partially fixes the feeling of being left out, which means the feeling of being left out is, at least in part, a physical event happening inside your body. It is not just in your head in the dismissive sense people mean when they tell you to get over it. It is in your head in the literal sense, in the tissue, in the wiring, in the same machinery that reports a burn. Here's what all of this adds up to. Most people think they hate being ignored because they need attention, because they're sensitive, because something is slightly wrong with them, some flaw they should have outgrown by now. The science says something different. You hate being ignored because your brain is running survival code that was written over 2 million years and cannot be patched through willpower. Code that reads social disconnection not as an inconvenience, but as a potential threat requiring immediate resolution. You are not weak for feeling it. You are a working member of a species that survived precisely because it could not stand to be left behind. And there's one final thing worth understanding before we're done. Most people find being ignored worse than being rejected. Read that again, because it sounds backwards. A clear no should feel worse than silence, but it doesn't. And the reason is precise. Rejection is information. Rejection closes the loop. The tiny stickmen update their threat assessment. The alarm stands down. The brain knows what it's working with and can start adapting. It hurts, yes, but it is a wound with edges, a thing you can name and eventually begin to heal. Being ignored leaves every loop open. The alarm keeps running. The scenarios keep multiplying. The brain keeps burning energy on a threat it cannot measure because the data never arrived. There is no wound to tend, only the endless suspicion of one. The stickmen cannot stand down because standing down requires an answer, and the answer never comes. Uncertainty is more exhausting than bad news. The brain can adapt to almost anything it can name: grief, failure, rejection, loss. It will find a way to metabolize all of it, given time and given the truth. What it cannot handle, what costs it the most, is the silence where an answer should be. And being ignored is, says, at its core, exactly that. Sustained silence, where an answer should be. So here's the last question, and this one I actually want you to answer below. What's worse for you? Being rejected directly, or being left on red and never knowing? There's no right answer. But there is a neurological one, and I think you already feel which way yours leans. The world your brain was built for no longer exists. The plane is gone. The predators are gone. The fire has been replaced by a screen that fits in your pocket. But the brain is still showing up to a job that ended 10,000 years ago, punching in every morning, manning a post that no longer guards anything. And so today, something much older than smartphones is still watching the entrance to the cave, still counting who's by the fire, still running ancient calculations about what it means that you're not. If our brains are still reacting to social threats from thousands of years ago, then how many of our emotions are actually messages from a world that no longer exists? And if you could tell the difference, if you could look at a feeling and know it was a ghost from the plane rather than a fact about your life today, would it hurt any less? The stickman on the plane would tell you it's a matter of survival. The stickman in the warm bed, checking the rectangle for the 12th time, is only now beginning to suspect the difference.